There's always changes you can make with any Pokemon. When Gen 5 first came out, I remember a lot of people who didn't like this starter Pokemon. Now looking back, I actually think the Stage 1 and Mid-Stage Pokemon were actually designed very well. They were peak. But the final evolutions, I always felt they could have went a different direction. Or at least that's just my opinion. Like, why does Duat, a Pokemon obviously inspired by Samurai, become this for its final evolution? A Pokemon that's on 4 legs when previously it was on 2. It just seemed rather random, especially what the Pokemon's based off of. And Emboar, yeah, you knew we were gonna talk about Emboar. Why do we have a fire fighting starter for 3 gens in a row? And not only that, but a pig Pokemon ended up becoming bipedal. And out of all this possible starter combination types, we go with firefighting again for a 3rd time. It completely killed the type for any starter Pokemon in the future. It's essentially become a meme that any fire starter that shows up is possibly going to become a fighting starter at the same time. Emboar wasn't even that good stat-wise, being slow and lackluster Pokemon. And I know this video is basically based off of my honest content opinion, but trust me, I feel like people have always wanted more out of the Gen 5 starters. If you like the starters the way they are right now, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm going to try to make changes to the starters to make them a little bit more interesting, make some stat changes, and improve them when needed. And show the actual changes in-game and theorycraft how they could perform in the actual meta. As far as changes to Snivy's line, I have nothing wrong with Snivy's design, although I've always had a minor nitpick overall with Snivy's typing, being a plain grass type. I always thought it was interesting, despite Snivy's line being a grass type, they have quite a bit of dragon type moves, having Outrage, Twister, Dragon Pulse, Dragon Tail. Now, not saying every single non-dragon type Pokemon with dragon moves needs to become a dragon Pokemon. I legitimately think Pokemon like Serperior would have benefited from being a dragon type, especially being potentially one of the very first grass dragon starters ever. Despite Snivy's pretty basic typing, its ability, Contrary, is actually very good ability. It's a hidden ability for the Pokemon where it reverses its stat increases and decreases. And if you use this in combination with Leaf Storm, it actually increases Serperior's stats instead of decreasing them, which is insane. In Serperior's very first competitive generation in Black and White, Serperior was actually NU, which is a pretty lackluster tier compared to what the Pokemon ended up becoming in future generations. Why is this the case? Well, they simply did not have access to their hidden abilities, so that's how good it became. As in later generations, they became an OU Pokemon, finally being able to use their hidden ability in competitive play. If Serperior had access to another typing, they possibly could have went up even higher, especially in Black and White, where Serperior did not have access to Contrary. First off, I would make Contrary an easier ability to attain all the way back in Black and White. This would make the ability available in competitive play. It probably would have made Serperior an OU tier Pokemon out the gate. And I'm going to Hail Mary this here, but my own 2 cents here. Sure, being a grass dragon type will definitely give Serperior more weaknesses, but with the combination of its ability, it might be able to use, theory crafting here, Draco Meteor, and actually being able to raise its stats, which, my god, Serperior, if they had access to Draco Meteor, it would be so broken. I kind of want to see it though. I don't even want to imagine the carnage it would display, but I'm kind of all for it, to be honest. I like a little bit of craziness. As Draco Meteor would normally drop special attack, except with Contrary, it would obviously raise it. The thing about Tepig, well, I think we can all agree here, he's the ugly duckling out of all the firefighting starter line. Did they really need to bring us 3 firefighting starters in a row? If I'm being honest, I don't even think we are ever going to get one ever again because of Emboar. Because it's been done so frequently, I don't even think Emboar is doing the type any justice. And I'm not trying to dunk on Emboar. I've actually used Emboar a lot in a lot of single player playthroughs. I actually think the firefighting type has a lot of utility in Black and White's in-game. However, when it comes to competitive play, Emboar is kind of a mess. Stat-wise, he's essentially a slow, bulky Pokemon, which is pretty rare for a fire-type Pokemon to be. He's almost the complete opposite of Blaziken and Infernape, who were essentially the aggressive glass cannons. And okay, fine, he's not like the other starters, at least he's a decent tank, right? Well, he's not really that amazing at that either. His speed is a little too high to be consistent in Trick Room, for example, and if he was actually a little bit slower, he might have a more niche on this type of team loadout. And despite having an amazing HP stat, I feel like his defenses are kind of mid. In competitive play, Emboar would end up being RU for 2 generations in a row, and then dropping to NU BL in Sun and Moon, and to be frank, Emboar is not a very good tank because his best moves deal significant amounts of recoil to himself. He also has plenty of moves that lower his stats. And why would you use him as a tank when there's plenty of other Pokemon out there who do this exact same archetype but better? And they don't have the same weaknesses like low defense. Why are his defense and special defense only at 65? Like, I just wish it was better. If I'm going to nitpick further, Emboar just needs to pick a lane. It's cool that he has a 100 base special attack, but his special attacks aren't even that good, and it's not where you're gonna run when you obviously have the much higher physical attack and more diverse physical moves. Most competitive Emboar sets just run physical attacks. While it's nice they're trying to give Emboar a little bit of an ability to run special moves, I think it kind of sacrifices his defenses too much. In fact, for Emboar, more specifically, I definitely want to change his stats. I'm not gonna add stats to Emboar because all Gen 5 starters have the same exact stat spread, so it would be a little overboard if Emboar had different stats. I'm simply just gonna move things around. If I were to have it my own way, I'm gonna actually subtract 30 special attack and spread them evenly to both of his defenses. And finally, I'm actually going to subtract his speed by -10 and then give it to his defenses. The reason why I'm slightly decreasing his speed is to actually give him more utility in Trick Room teams. So his defense and special defense will be at 85, and his special attack will be at 70. His speed will be at 55. The slight stat changes are very minor to some people, but I think they will actually help him out. Also, one last change, and I know this is definitely a bit of a right hook. Some people might not be on board with this. I would like to change Emboar's typing. I would love it if Emboar had a different type. He's kind of the laughingstock of the firefighting starter line. I think Emboar should have just picked his own lane. His design in general just doesn't feel like a fighting type to me. And if anything, I feel like he visually could have been anything else. He could have been pure fire, he could have been rock, he could have been ground, maybe even steel. So I said, you know what? Let me pick whichever one I want to make him. Let's make Pignite a fire ground type, and this will mean he will have access to stab ground move, which will buff when he uses attacks like Earthquake. This low-key might seem like a huge downgrade, but trust me, it's going to make Emboar feel a little bit more original. He won't be the joke firefighting type Pokemon. I know making him a fire ground type will give him more weaknesses, like for example, he'll be ×4 weak to water, but there could be some workarounds to that. He definitely will have more weaknesses, but I think making him more original is my #1 goal with Emboar. Oshawott is actually not a flawed starter, especially if we go off the more recent Hisuian version of Samurott, currently sweeping team after team, I'm sure, becoming a major threat in Scarlet and Violet. I would never have guessed that. But before its new form was added, Samurott was not that good at all. The base form was always an NU Pokemon for every single game, even dropping to PU in Scarlet and Violet. That's how bad the Pokemon was. It doesn't even get a major speed increase when it evolves. It actually becomes slower. Samurott's stats for being a water type are actually not really that bulky, and its strength is pretty average. Its 2 strongest stats being physical and special attack, especially after the Hisuian form essentially outclassing the base form by a large mile. It would have been nice if maybe they were to go a different direction with the normal form too, but they didn't. With the Hisuian type being a dark and water type, I feel like it would have made more sense symmetry-wise all the way back in Gen 5 if Samurott was just a water fighting type. Move over, Quaxly. I actually like Quaxly, but sorry to be rude to Quaxly. Samurott already has a handful of fighting type moves in their kit, which I know is a normal thing, but it's kind of crazy they never pulled the trigger on its typing. I feel like it'd only be fair to make his stats actually the same as the Hisuian version of Samurott, which would give slight increases to their attack and speed while trading their defenses. Although we don't need to give it its sharpness ability, as that was introduced much later. I want the Hisuian form to be its own thing, so we don't need to give it that. Also, giving it more fighting type moves would only make sense with this brand new typing. Now, how would this affect the games and the meta? And here's what I found. Dewott being a water fighting type would definitely make Black and White's normal gym easier to beat, while Pignite and Emboar would definitely receive some buffs and nerfs. However, they would have more niche in the electric gym in Black and White. In Black and White 2, Pignite would actually be slightly more useful in that game, being able to beat the Poison Gym, which is actually an early gym in that game. And the Grass Dragon Snivy is definitely going to be beating the 8th Black and White gym and the 7th Black and White 2 gym, and because of its new dragon typing, it's going to have niche against Black and White 2's champion. I think if Serperior was a grass dragon type and had access to their own hidden ability, I think those things alone would make them OU out the gate. It's pretty clear that Serperior is actually a strong starter without any changes at all. We just want to make him a little bit better, I guess. With access to Draco Meteor, some people might say giving it Draco Meteor is going to make it broken, but I say, hey, let the Draco Meteors reign. I want to see it. A ×4 weakness to ice will definitely suck, but it hasn't stopped other mons from being very good, like Garchomp or Salamence. Emboar, you could argue, is being made worse by becoming a fire ground type. I want Emboar to have his own specific niche and try to stick out. My goal is to not make Emboar super broken. He doesn't need to become OU, but anything to get him out of being NU I think would be an honest buff to the character. I do think the stat changes especially will go a long way for him, and Stab Earthquake will be a nice move to spam in single player mode. If you want to make him even better, give him moves like Swords Dance or Scorching Sands, whatever. I generally think a water fighting Samurott would be an insane combination. With a better move pool and the stat changes, I think these things could go a long way. He's not as good as his Hisuian counterpart, but he really doesn't need to be. He just needs to be good enough to get out of NU, and oh god, what if we gave Samurott Shell Smash? Thank you guys for watching the video. I decided to do a Pokemon video. I haven't done one in a very long time. Thank you guys for watching. Seriously, take care. If you guys want videos early, there's a Patreon down below and you get access to the Honest Content Discord. Seriously, hopefully you guys are having a great day. Let me know if you want any videos like this in the future. Take care, guys. Peace.